Max here. We're back with Behind the Mod, Season 3, Episode 6, and today Xbony is joining us. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, so you made a few IC2 add-ons, and now you do a lot of work for the FTB Wiki, is that right?
Yes.
So, how did you get involved with Minecraft and modding in the first place?
I started playing Minecraft around version, I think 1.2.5, and I didn't really get into modding until I think 1.4.2 with one of FTB's original packs, Beta Pack A, I think. I later moved on to Minecraft pack and then to Ultimate.
Mm-hmm. And Ultimate, was that the 164 pack?
No, Ultimate's the last 1.4.7 pack.
Okay. And so, what appealed to you about modding?
Um, I don't know really. I liked playing with machines and stuff, I guess.
Was it like in the base game, uh, what attracted you to that you think was better in modding? Was there were there things in normal Minecraft that appealed to you, like the building or?
I think what draws vanilla Minecraft to such a popularity scale, is probably the building and the venturing and all of that sort of stuff, and modded largely extends that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the best mods either, I mean, like it's really sounds really dumb, but either have more resources, more mining, or more ways of making stuff, more crafting, really, which I think is the core of the game. So how did that extend to making add-ons for IC2?
So my first mod was actually not an IC2 add-on, but it was definitely inspired by IC2. Didn't really go anywhere though. But through my first mod, I learned a lot about modding and programming and whatnot. Eventually, sometime during the transition from Minecraft 1.6 to 1.7, there were a couple IC2 add-ons that did not update. So, um, I took on the task of trying to update nuclear control in particular to 1.7. And well, I did that with some help from another guy named Zexulis.
And did you have a programming background before?
No, modding was my first time programming.
Huh. So were you just like learning Java and modding on the fly?
Yeah, just might not be the best way to do it, but it's the way I did it. So.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of modders that not the best way to do it, but sometimes that's how it happens. So did you kind of were there lessons you learned from that? I mean, because that was such early days for you.
Well, I learned a lot about programming, so I'm grateful for that.
And have you ever had the desire to make your own mods beyond like porting other ones?
Um, a little bit. Um, I've made like a couple mods here and there, but to be honest, I'm not that creative. I feel like once I learned how to program, I lost all of my creativity.
Yeah, I mean, those are two different things. Do you think that like with IC2, it's one of those interesting mods. It's changed a lot in the time it's been around. What
Yeah.
do you think? How do you think it stands now, like in 110 or 111, our environment now? Like how do you think people are using IC2, and do you think it still a mod that you enjoy?
From the transition to the non-experimental version to the experimental version, a lot of people haven't really liked that as much, but I personally still enjoy the mod, and I'm okay with the changes that have been made over time. I haven't really kept track of the changes from 1.7 to 1.10, or I'm not sure if IC2 is on 1.11 yet or not. But from what I've seen, I think there's a couple new cool stuff in it. I'm not really sure.
So have you kept up with the like later mods, like later tech mods and just the newer mods that are been coming out?
I've been playing around a lot with some of the newer mods, not so much IC2, but stuff like immersive engineering and actual additions, um, like roots. That stuff all it's all very interesting to me, I suppose. They're all
Mm-hmm.
very good new content mods.
Yeah, and I think that leads into, what you do now mainly,
Yeah,
which is editing the FTB Wiki, which is kind of basically the unified like compendium for Minecraft modded
yeah.
information. How did you get involved doing wiki stuff?
So, well, it goes back to nuclear control. When I was porting it, I was actually a pretty big fan of GregTech at the time. And I believe when GregTech 5 came around, the official wiki for GregTech actually went down since it was hosted on a wiki um, farm called Wikispaces. Um, and basically, Wikispaces changed their policy so that only educational wikis could be hosted for free on it. So all gaming wikis basically went down pretty quickly. So so from GregTech 5 onward, um, Greg decided to use the official Feed the Beast wiki as well, the official GregTech wiki. And I guess um, in inspiration of that, I decided to adopt it as my own wiki. So, so I documented the nuclear control add-on on the official wiki, and eventually got involved with documenting a couple other mods, like IC2 itself and Friends mod or two.
It's funny you mentioned that it was on the FTB Wiki, Greg Tech, that kind of moved to
Yeah.
that because of that Wiki Spaces issue. I remember personally, I used to be into Steve's carts, and I think that was
Oh
also
yeah.
affected by that. That was a kind of a big deal, but I think in some ways helpful because it is really nice having one centralized location that you can learn about so many mods.
Yeah. Also, I think Red Power.
Yeah, there were a lot that had their own wikis that kind of had to basically consolidate. Um, so more and more mods in 110 like Roots and Tinker's Construct has done
Yeah.
this for a while. Botania, they're adopting in-game documentation. So why do you think having a centralized online Wikipedia is so important?
I like in-game documentation um a lot. Although a lot of people still would kind of prefer the older wiki style that, well, I work on. Partially because wikis are a little bit more formal than in-game documentation, and it's also a lot more, I guess universal is the right word, where, you've got like, I don't know, dozens of different types of in-game documentation across all sorts of different books, but everything is on one wiki. It's very consistent and um, usable,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people like.
So personally, like when you're playing with mods, do you find yourself kind of having a browser tab looking at the FTB wiki?
I personally don't think I can play mods without documenting stuff. um, but yeah, a lot of times I'll use the FTB Wiki or other wikis over in-game documentation myself. Although I don't mind using in-game documentation if necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also one of the things that's always been around is stuff like NEI,
Yeah,
now
definitely.
JEI. Those make it really easy to find crafting recipes, and
Yeah,
for a lot of people, that's really all they need a wiki for. But then there's some mods like Thaumcraft that have such kind of new mechanics. I think that it's really important for them to have somewhere you can learn about them.
yeah.
So, lots of you mentioned new mods, like actually additions, roots. Lots of that stuff, is on the FTB wiki. Why do
hmm
you think it's important for like newer mods to have that documentation? Do you think it gives them, like attention that they wouldn't have had otherwise?
Um, I personally have sort of been on a quest to document the new versions, like 1.8 forward. Since, well, I don't think they used to get as much attention as like 1.7 did when 1.7 was more popular. Although, well, the demand for 1.7 documentation is sort of decreasing and decreasing over time, where the demands for documentation on newer mods has just sort of grown and grown.
And when you say like demand for documentation, how do you measure that? Is it like players, playing different packs on different versions? Is it people saying, "Hey, can you add this mod?" Like, how do you kind of measure that?
I would just kind of say number of players playing different packs. Although we did have like a sort of survey a while ago, and the survey was open for a pretty long time. So I'm not sure how accurate the results were, but I sort of noticed that more people requested for, well, 1.10 documentation or other later versions as time went on.
And do you think just based on metrics like that, that 110 really is kind of the new like big version that people are gathering around, or do you think that like 1.7 is still, even if a minority, still like a significant portion of the modded player base?
Nowadays, I think 1.10 is sort of the go-to version, or maybe even 1.11. Um, Maybe like a couple months ago, might have still been 1.7, but I think 1.10 is sort of the winner right now.
hmm Yeah, and lots of stuff changed, like not just in terms of like technical stuff, but so many mods were rewritten and so many new mods
Yeah.
sprung up that playing modded really is a totally different experience. I mean, it's only similar in a few core ways, but so much of the content's different. How do you go about learning the new stuff?
Um, for documentation, well, usually to research stuff. With some stuff, you can just kind of play with it and figure out what it does. And there's also some limited amounts of in-game documentation. And if you're good at programming like me, you don't necessarily have to be to write documentation, but it really helps. Looking at the source code is really, really useful, especially to figure out like particular values like on energy consumption and stuff like that.
hmm And is it like specific? Do you find yourself mainly like copying metrics? Like, what is the process of creating like a wiki page? How do you go about explaining items and mechanics in game?
Well, to make a wiki page, usually the first thing I'll do is sort of construct like a base page per se, which is contains like the info boxes and the nav box and the recipe. And then usually you explain what it does in greater detail. Um, and usually to figure that part out, you might look at, like I said, in-game documentation or the source code, or just play around with it a bit.
hmm And do you think that those kind of that how helpful do you think in general it is to people who want to learn about these mods compared to other sources like in-game documentation? Like how often do you think someone playing Infinity is gonna look at the wiki?
Um, I don't know. Um, In-game documentation is certainly pretty useful, although I may argue that wiki documentation in some cases is a little bit more in depth, and sometimes it might explain things a little bit better than in-game documentation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely an opportunity there, and I know some mod authors like to keep things a little vague and keep it mysterious so that
Yeah,
in game
definitely.
you discover stuff over time. How do
Like
you
in Farmcraft in
yeah, and
particular.
blood magic sort of. There's a few others that do that. How do you approach that as a wiki editor?
Well, on the FTB Wiki, we pretty much have a there's no such thing as a spoiler guideline. um, we're as all revealing as possible, and maybe that's not great, but if you're looking at a wiki and trying to figure out everything, we're going to tell you exactly what you need to know.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever gotten like flack from any mod authors? You don't have to call out names, but any like
Oh.
sort of, you never?
Actually, no. We sort of argued about, I forget what it was. It was like some spell in witchery, but it was like among, me and a couple other wiki editors about whether to include it or not.
Was it? It was like kind of a mysterious thing that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Originally, some random editor, um, well, he put the name of the spell, I guess, and he said that the method was secret. Since it's like really complicated and it's not documented in Witchery itself. Um, we ended up including the full method, I guess.
Hmm. And when it comes to just playing the game personally and like getting into the mods themselves, how do you do that? Do you play like do you have a custom pack you do? Do you play like a kitchen sink pack? How do you approach the mods themselves?
Personally, I have a couple custom mod packs. Um, it's mostly just like a mishmash of mods I like and mods I'm documenting.
And it's kind of like just
Yeah.
do you make any special configurations or is it just mainly kind of like mods that you want to put in there?
Yeah, it's mostly just mods I like and are documenting. Usually with the default options, although I might mess around with options sometimes
And do
just
you
to
find
test
your
things.
and do you find yourself like playing on it personally or mainly just kind of doing it so for the wiki? Like how do you play the game?
Um, it's mostly just testing. Um, I don't really play a lot of Minecraft outside of testing, to be honest. Although I was playing a little bit of Affinity Light a little while ago.
Yeah, I mean, I find that myself, I like sometimes I like a break from like a lot of big
Yeah.
mods, and I like to play like vanilla style packs sometimes. Are there any kind of like packs or like maps or other things in Minecraft you like to do when you're not doing wiki stuff?
I used to play a lot of PvP, but I don't really do a lot more stuff now. Sometimes I'll watch a couple of random streamers every now and again, though,
Mm-hmm.
which is always enjoyable.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when you're you're working on a team when you're doing wiki stuff,
Yeah.
what is that like?
Um, we have a fairly small team of people. Not all of them are very active. I'm probably the most active person on it. We're all have varying degrees of activity, although in the very least, most of us hang out in IRC and like do stuff like help newcomers when possible or for vandalism and stuff like that.
And when it comes to like discovering mods, is it like the FTB team comes to you and says, "Hey, we're gonna include these mods in a pack"? Do you like search curse for it? How do you come across mods to cover and like, yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah. We don't really talk to FTB very much. Maybe as not as much as we probably should. We're sort of separate organizations. But personally, I usually document well mods I like, and that sort of goes for the rest of the editors on the wiki. Um, I try to lean towards mods that are more popular or in bigger mod packs and whatnot, but mostly it comes down to choice.
Mm-hmm. Just like personal choice.
Yeah. Like for example, I'm not a huge fan of Tinker's Construct, which is why I haven't really documented it.
Mm-hmm. But it also happens to have a like pretty fundamental in-game documentation too.
Yeah, also that.
Do you have you ever found like you discovered a really cool mod in the process of documenting it? Like you didn't realize a mod had, a lot of really cool hidden depths that you didn't see before?
Um, Usually when I start documenting mod, it's not really a mod that I necessarily know a lot about. A lot of it is just kind of learning as you go. I'm kind of a Minecraft noob in a way because I mostly just stick to certain mods because I'm, documenting them and whatnot. So yeah, you definitely discover a lot about the potentials of certain mods and whatnot as you go.
Mm-hmm. And what are like some notable examples of mods that you think have been like fun to document or fun to kind of like learn about that really stuck out to you?
Um, Probably immersive engineering.
Just because it
Um,
was so new?
yeah, well, immersive engineering, like when I first saw the mod, it was like in a direwolf video and it wasn't even released yet. But I just sort of looked at it and felt like it would be a great mod and it would become a big mod. And well, it did just that and I documented it. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever like work with the mod authors or mod creators to clear things up that you can't get from the source code or from in-game?
Um, yes and no. With some mod offers, I've never really talked to them. Some I have talked to a bit. Like LPEC and AZ, like for care set and actual editions. Me and LPEC are pretty good friends, I'd say. And I've talked to AZ about some stuff in care set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think yeah, it's pretty cool like when we get those kind of community interactions because there's so many like different levels of creation going on in this community, whether it be
Yeah,
mod packs, the mods themselves, people like you who do the documentation and the wikis. It's really kind of fascinating how much, how many layers of that are going on. But yeah, I that's so that's like the FTB Wiki. Do you ever plan to do any more stuff with modded yourself, or do you want to do more work when it comes to stuff outside the game like documentation? How do you see things going in that sense?
Um, I've always sort of wanted to say kind of create my own big mod. Um, since I've made like a couple small mods here and there, but most of the stuff I'm more known with, like nuclear control and Flexbeard steam power, are stuff that I sort of jumped on later. I've never really created many big, cool mods of my own. I'd like to do something like that at some point.
And would it likely be on a team with other people or like yourself?
Probably be by myself. Although I don't really have many ideas, unfortunately. So that kind of makes it a little bit hard.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you can find a lot of contacts given what you do in the
Oh yeah.
modded world. So yeah. Uh, but yeah, that would be pretty cool. But yeah. Any other more kind of closing thoughts?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. To Behind the Mod.
Thank you.
It's been great having you on. I think it's really cool to get the perspective of a wiki editor or just
Yep.
uh people who aren't just straight programmers or modders. Because nothing wrong with them, but it's great to have something different every now and then.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching on YouTube or listening to us as a podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, and on YouTube, all those great things. And see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you to all my patrons. If you want to join them, then check out the link in the description to support the show. Thanks, and see you next time.